Do you ever feel like you're checked out of your own life? You go through the motions, put on a happy face, but inside you're numb. You're running on autopilot. I lived like that for 15 years in my second marriage after he was unfaithful. I wasn't walking on eggshells, I was sleepwalking. I was terrified of a second divorce, so I convinced myself that this is just what marriage was. Me compromising, me silencing myself. Silence felt safer than the truth. What finally changed everything wasn't me gaining confidence or clarity. It was finally having the hard conversations that I had been avoiding. 2.5 years into my second marriage, my husband had an affair. We went to counseling for a few months, and I thought we had worked through it. I thought I had worked through it. But what I realize now is I had just shoved it down. I pretended like going to counseling for a little bit was enough, that life would go back to normal. And I was writing in my journal at the time. I wrote that I was scared that we wouldn't be able to work things out. And I had been sharing my fear of us not being able to work it out. And I wrote that after I had shared that a few times with him, he said to me, "Don't say that. Don't feel that way. I want to know, I need to know that you believe and have faith that we can work this out." And so I stopped sharing my fears. I stopped sharing my feelings with him. I realized if I continued to share my feelings and my fears, that he would leave. What I realize now is that one of my core fears, my deepest fears, was the fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. So I chose safety over truth. And this is called secondary gain. It's an unintended benefit of a behavior that we have. So my behavior was to silence myself, and the unintended benefit, the subconscious, unconscious benefit, was safety, was to stay connected to him, to not be abandoned, to not be rejected. So I didn't really choose to not speak up because it came from the unconscious. It was a pattern that had developed in me over childhood to not speak up, to not tell my truth because of that fear of abandonment or rejection. And this is basically a nervous system choice of this is how we stay safe. We do this a lot in our life. We don't speak up. We wait to ask for help. We wait to set a boundary. We wait till things are easier to do the thing. We want it to not be hard. Do you do this? Do you wait for things to not be hard before you speak up? Share in the comments so others know that they're not alone. I basically traded my voice for a false sense of security. I stayed in this safe unhappiness, hoping that one day I would find the courage to speak up, or that one day the marriage would just magically fix itself. In response to that, I started numbing myself. I didn't want to feel this unhappiness. I didn't want to feel that core pain that I knew was there. And numbing became a habit. It became my shield. It became the way for me to protect myself. So I drank the wine. I played good wife. I stayed busy. And I was afraid that if I felt my feelings long enough, if I allowed them to surface, that I would have to say them and then I would be abandoned or rejected. I was miserable though, and my body reflected that misery. They say when we have dis-ease in our mind, which I did, right? I had all this negative thinking, all this stress and anxiety about what was happening in my life. But they say if we have dis-ease in the mind, we have disease in the body. And that, I truly reflect that. I got Hashimoto's just a few weeks after I found out that he was having an affair. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition where your immune system attacks your thyroid. That was a sign that I was not using my voice. I gained 30 pounds during that time. I physically and mentally felt very heavy. And I realize now that the weight partially was a protection mechanism in order for me to not feel attractive, so that I didn't think I was attractive, because then that just further made me fear the pain of rejection, which doesn't really make sense. But that is the way my body and my mind responded to this. And funny enough, I ended up getting a job in the wine industry. I worked in the wine industry for 11 years. What a better place to numb yourself than in a place where you have an excuse to drink on a daily basis. So this secondary gain of feeling safe by not speaking my truth, it worked until it didn't. Fast forward 15 years and I got that same yucky feeling back, that gut feeling that I had when I first found out 15 years prior that he was having an affair. I got that same feeling. The old me would have shoved it down. In fact, I did shove it down, right? But the new me, I had done a lot of work on myself, on figuring out what this pattern was doing to my life, this pattern of silencing myself, what it was doing to who I wanted to be in my life and what I wanted to be in my life, and just how I wanted my life to be. I didn't want it to be unhappy or not peaceful, or I didn't want to feel not content. And those are the things that I was feeling. Eckhart Tolle said that the world is not here to make you happy. The world is here to make you conscious. And I was starting to become conscious, aware of how this pattern of silencing myself was actually devastating to my life. And so when this yucky feeling, this gut feeling came up that something was going on with him again, I decided to start speaking up. And I had a do it scared moment. I had been telling myself for all these years that I was waiting for the right time to say something, right? That I was waiting for it to not be hard, to waiting for him to bring it up, for him to decide, right? As a people pleaser, I let everybody decide things for me. But I got to the point where I was no longer willing to continue to sacrifice myself, to sacrifice my life, to abandon myself anymore. And so I had this do it scared moment. Because really, I was just waiting for the fear to go away. But I realized the fear, when we have something hard in our life, the fear is never going to go away. We have to do it in spite of the fear, with the fear riding in the passenger seat or in the back seat, not letting it be the driver anymore. It wasn't easy to bring this up. I was terrified. I was really sad because I knew from years of thinking about this that if I spoke up, that could very well end the marriage. But again, the pain of abandoning myself and the self-sacrifice became greater than the pain of losing the marriage or of being alone. So I chose courage, and I sat him down and I said, if I'm going to feel alone, I would rather be alone. And he looked at me and he said, you don't really mean that. And I just didn't say a word. And he finally said, oh, maybe you do. We had quite a long discussion that night. And in my head, I gave it 6 months. I gave it 6 months to turn around because I knew already that I had been waiting 15 years. And so waiting just prolongs the suffering, right? 5 months later, I didn't make it to the 6th month. 5 months later, I woke up one morning and realized that I was done based on something that had happened in our counseling session the day before. I packed a couple of bags and I left, and I never went back. I left 17 years of marriage behind. I know this sounds bad that I spoke up and my marriage ended, but I knew if I didn't speak up, I would pay an even higher price, a higher cost for continuing to not speak up. And the cost I paid to not speak up for 15 years was the opportunity to have my own family. That is a huge price to pay. And I want to be clear that it wasn't hard to speak up because he was scary. It was scary because I made it scary. I made it hard. I made speaking my truth hard. I was making it hard in my mind because I thought the truth was scary. But again, it goes back to that core fear of not wanting to be abandoned. And I equated from the time I was a child to that truth meant rejection. And so I was just acting unconsciously for all of those years on something that was just a subconscious pattern, a subconscious belief. So the hard part wasn't a conflict with him. The hard part was a conflict with myself. Saying those words meant feeling the possible failure of my second marriage, disrupting the comfortable numbness that I had gotten myself in, and stepping into the unknown without a safety net. That marriage had become my safety net. Even though I was unhappy, it still felt safer than the unknown. So I left that day and I sofa surfed for 7 months while I figured out what my game plan was. I slept on friends' couches until I could figure out what my next step was. On the other side of this hard thing for me was a decrease in overthinking. I stopped ruminating about it. It was an increase in self-respect and confidence. When we do the hard things, we gain confidence. We don't get confidence first. Confidence comes from doing the hard thing. My clarity about our relationship and my life increased. I had a stronger sense of identity when I stepped out on my own and became my own person instead of living as a shell of myself in this marriage. And my peace increased from relying and listening to my own inner wisdom. Where are you waiting for easy? How long have you been waiting? How long will you continue to wait? How long are you willing to wait for it to not be hard before you do the hard thing? And how hard are you making it in your mind by ruminating about it, thinking about it, overthinking it, waking up at 2 a.m. thinking about it more, right? We're making it harder by continuing to think about it instead of taking that step into the hard thing, just taking that leap of faith. So are you putting off sending a hard text? Are you putting off setting a boundary? What kind of hard conversation are you avoiding having? Maybe someone hurt you and you're afraid to tell them for fear that they won't like you anymore. We need to develop self-respect and self-acceptance and live our life as we want to live. Are you waiting for the courage to show up and the fear to go away before you do the hard thing? Ask yourself, what am I gaining out of this by not doing the thing, right? What is my secondary gain? Do I feel more safe because I'm afraid of being rejected or abandoned like me? Do I feel more safe because I don't know what would happen with my finances if I left? And it doesn't have to be a marriage, right? We avoid doing hard things a lot. Sit with, what am I gaining by not doing the hard thing? And what is it costing me to not do the hard thing? For me, it cost me not having a family of my own. Your cost might not be so great, but what is it costing you? There is a cost to you to not do the hard thing. It could be as simple as the cost of not gaining confidence, not gaining self-esteem by not doing the hard thing. So what is it costing you? Is it costing you your health? Are you numbing? Is it costing you financially? Is it costing you emotionally, spiritually, mentally? And weigh out those costs versus the secondary gain, the benefit that you're getting by not doing the thing. The bottom line is that choosing the hard thing isn't one and done. You have to continually choose the hard thing over and over again. Maybe not the same hard thing, right? Let's hope we choose the hard thing, then take a step in a different direction, which then softens that hard thing. But you have to keep choosing. You have to keep choosing you. It all came down to the courage for me to choose me. The hard conversations may never be easy, but living a lie is always going to be harder. Learning to speak up was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I broke the pattern of stuffing things down like I'd done for almost 50 years of my life. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Heidi, and I support women in stopping the self-sacrifice and self-doubt. If you'd like to work with me, you can book a session, a coaching session in the link in the description of this video, and I would be honored to guide you. Want to know the specific good girl advice I started ignoring to finally find my own voice, and how following that advice cost me 3 marriages? Check out this video next. Thanks for watching. See you there.